alter one kite. I'm already into the 420, damn it.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
You like music, you like weed, well, we gonna be good friends indeed. This is how much I like more than smoking trees. They'll make you dance the do-si-do and teach you how the chiva grows. Smoke a bowl on the 420 radio show. On Lifestyle Radio.
No one's singing today. No one felt like singing.
I was singing.
Can't hear you, Al.
You can't hear me?
Oh, I can now, sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Welcome to the 420 Radio Show. We're live here at 420radio.ca. As well, hello, Facebook people. Wave to Facebook, everybody. Come on, let's do the Brady Bunch thing.
Hello, Facebook people.
You know I love you, Facebook.
One day I'm going to play that theme song. I want to welcome Senator Leach to the show. Hi, Daylin. How are you?
Hey, Al. Good to be with you.
It's been a while. I invited the senator on the show because a few years ago we had him on the show, and since then he's been quite active in the cannabis with helping medical cannabis get into Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, that was my bill in Pennsylvania, and now we're working on the adult use bill.
So why don't you take us back a little bit to the last time you were here when it kind of started? Right, you were helping young constituents in your area who was in need of some oil, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, it wasn't my constituent. It was funny. It was someone who did not live in my district. She went to her senator, and her senator was like, I want to help you. Her son had Dravet syndrome, which is a very extreme form of epilepsy. Seizing all the time, and she'd heard about Charlotte's Web in Colorado and how it had helped her and some other kids out there, and obviously she wanted to try it for her own kid, but she couldn't. And so she went to her senator, and her senator said, well, you know what, that's really controversial. I'm not going to get involved in that, but I'll tell you what, there's a senator in another district I'm going to send you to. Do you ever see that commercial when you were a kid, that Life cereal, give it to Mikey, he'll eat anything? It was sort of like that. It was sort of like, Daylin will do anything. So he sent her to me. I met with her, and I was so moved by her story that I promised her I would get the bill passed to allow her to use medical cannabis in Pennsylvania. And then we left the meeting, and I was like, okay, genius, how are you going to get this done? Because I was, I'm a Democrat in a Republican-controlled legislature. We do not. Pennsylvania typically does not lead the way on social change, and so it was a daunting task. But through a series of events involving persistence, involving a lot of luck, and involving some fortuitous coincidences, we were able to get this passed, and we're really proud of the bill we passed. We're proud of how it's rolled out. We have right now 22 conditions you can get almost every form of cannabis for, and we have you can use whole flower. You can we just, it's not perfect. We didn't get everything we want. You never do in legislation, but we feel that it's going really well, and so now I am focusing more on moving adult use now because that. It's a different set of problems that prohibition causes, but as you guys know better than anybody, still really, really bad problems. And so we're working on that. And I can talk about, to the extent you want me to, I could talk about that. But I will say that the COVID-19 situation has made it far more likely that this passes in the short term because we are desperate for money. In a bad year in Pennsylvania, we're like $200 million in the hole, and we have a balanced budget amendment, so we have to have a balanced budget. And so in a bad year, we'll have $200 to $300 million to make up, and it's always really difficult to do that. This year, we're looking at a $5 billion hole, unless there's some aid to the states from the federal government, which we do not see happening yet. So, with that much money to make up, either through the cutting of popular programs or tax increases, legislators who previously were not very receptive suddenly are publicly saying it may be time to do this just because we so desperately need the money.
You know, I find it hilarious, really hilarious, that the thing that everybody wanted to stop back in the 60s and 70s is now it's bringing countries out of debt. It's bringing states in the U.S. I mean, if they used it properly in Canada, it would abolish a lot of things. Just the money coming in from it, from a plant. You know, Marcel and Lennie and Darcy all work at an LP, a legal provider here in Canada, and they're able to take the knowledge that they've learned from being in the cannabis community as patients and take it to the legal side of things. And because there's a lot of crap going on about cannabis, you know, a lot of faux pas, a lot of fake news, as your boss says. You know,
my boss.
No, I know.
He's a Democrat.
Fair enough. But you know,
that's his opponent now.
Well, good. Go get him, buddy. The whole fake news thing is unfortunate for the medical side of things. They have completely dropped us out of the wayside in Canada as far as medical cannabis goes. You know, and it's sad. Anyways, I wanted to also introduce to you my friend Jack Lloyd, who is a lawyer here in Canada. He's also involved in a lot of the cases going on in Canada revolving around cannabis. And also Kurt Robbins, who's a technical writer in the cannabis world. He's been doing this for a number of years as well. And I'm sure that they'll have stuff that they want to throw at you too. So you've got a new thing that you're pushing basically for the recreational bill, yes?
Yeah. Now, we spent about a little over a year before the COVID hit, traveling around the country, meeting with stakeholders, meeting with experts, meeting with people who've done this before. You know, we worked very hard to get what we think is a great bill. It's heavy on social justice. We work hard to make sure that the medical industry can survive as well after we have adult use, and you need a medical industry even with adult use. You know, we think it's going to be good for the market. We think people will be able to survive economically, but we open it up all across the economic spectrum. The medical bill, for a variety of reasons, had to be structured in such a way that you really needed. And I'm sorry, the sun is. I'm told I look better when the sun goes down completely, but that shouldn't be too long. But anyway, the medical bill was structured in such a way that you had to have some resources in order to get involved as a license holder or as a dispenser. But we wanted the adult use to be much more democratic with a small d, much more economically available to people all along the economic spectrum. So we worked hard to do that. Now, again, when we're at the point of actually passing a bill, this is how all legislatures work. You know, there'll be a room that people go into and argue things out, and there'll be compromises made, and you never get 100% of what you want, or you'll get 0%. So, you know, we may not get everything, but we wrote the bill that we would want if we could get everything. And we think it would be, you know, if this bill passed, we tried to learn from some of the mistakes other states have made. You know, we're still doing it. We have a completed bill, but it's still in some ways a work in progress. Whenever we hear a better idea, we incorporate it. Because up until the day it's passed through the legislature and signed by the governor, it'll change. But we're very excited about it, and hopefully we'll be able to make some progress in the fall.
Jack Lloyd here. What a great pleasure to meet you, Daylin. I'm a lawyer as well, so I've been following your great work there in Pennsylvania for some time. And when Al asked if I would like to come on the show, I said, "Oh, that would be super cool." So thank you very much for hanging out and letting me ask you nerdy questions. In Canada, the history of cannabis legalization, particularly for medical cannabis patients, occurred through judicial change. So court cases that found prohibitions on access to medical cannabis to be unconstitutional. Do you have any thoughts on that? How that works in Pennsylvania and in the United States generally? Because I just, as a lawyer, I generally see the change coming legislatively rather than judicially. Do you have any thoughts on why that is?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I mean, first of all, a lot of the change has come through neither of those avenues. It's come through referendums. However, Pennsylvania does not have a referendum provision. You can't put substantive questions on the ballot in a binding way to change the law like you can in California and New Jersey, where they're having a referendum this November on legalization. So we can't do that. So with us, it either has to go through the legislature or through the judiciary theoretically. There are some arguments. I think the arguments are stronger on the medical side in terms of, saying it's a denial of due process and it's a denial of a number of other substantive rights to deny people medicine that will make them better, essentially to make them sick. It's probably a little bit weaker of an argument on the recreational side. However, as compelling as the argument as I may find that argument, so far the courts have not found that argument particularly compelling. I mean, a lot of courts are of the mind that, look, I mean, even if they agree with us, and I've spoken to judges, I mean, even if they agree with us, they would rather the legislature do it. It just looks better optically, and also because keep in mind, let's say the court said it's prohibition is unconstitutional. As you know, the big question is what's next. There has to be, there's a lot of statutory language, and then that leads to the promulgation of even more regulatory language. In other words, when we were drafting our bill, there are hundreds of questions that were unanswered. We had to answer them. If a court decision does this, it doesn't really answer any of those questions. So you're still going to need someone to flesh that out. If a court said tomorrow, cannabis is legal, well, okay, who can get licenses? What are the security? What are the health? What are the testing requirements? What are the reporting requirements? What is this? What is that? And so it's just very messy for a court to do that because you're still going to need legislation, but it makes it harder to pass in some ways. So I think the courts, by and large, are letting us at least take the first crack at it. And then if we draft something that has some problems, they can clean it up much more easily than they can create something sort of out of whole cloth, if that makes sense.
That absolutely makes sense. Super fascinating. Can you speak to, I know you're a lawyer as well as a politician. Can you speak to any unique elements in Pennsylvania? I believe Pennsylvania is technically a commonwealth. From a constitutional perspective and from a legislative perspective, is there anything unique about Pennsylvania as far as passing this law?
No, there are 4 commonwealths in America. As we listen to your viewers click off one by one.
Sorry.
This is why I didn't have a prom date. No, substantively speaking, that's not going to be a major impediment. There are some very technical differences, but broadly speaking, either we go around those or we just the courts tend to ignore them. So right now, it's a question of just getting a bill to the floor. Now, as you know, legislatures are interesting bodies. People in the general public often don't understand legislatures because they're very strange. They think that there are 50 in Pennsylvania. They think there are 50 senators and there's 203 representatives. That's not true. There are two teams, okay? The minority and the majority. And the team that has the majority controls dictatorially what happens in that body. What bills come to the floor, what bills run in committee, what they say. And when they run, I mean, every year in Pennsylvania, there's about 4,000 pieces of legislation introduced, about 200 get a vote. So that's 5%. Most bills just lie in quiet repose and die at the end of session. And so the reason I'm telling you all that is to say that, right now, I'm a Democrat. We have a Democratic governor, but we have a Republican House and Senate. And so in order to get anything on the ballot, on the floor to vote, the Republicans have to agree to run it. And that is that's why you have to negotiate, because they have different priorities than we do. But you can often get people to agree to different things to the same bill for different reasons, completely antithetical reasons, and that's okay as long as they vote yes. I don't care why they vote yes. So we have to appeal to them with things like, this is going to make a lot of money for people. This is going to bring in tax dollars that you won't have to. You can cut taxes then, or whatever. It's not based on, well, we got too many people in prison, and this is immoral to charge people criminally for possessing a plant, and all of that. That you get a different group of people that way. So it is. People have to understand. It's not just a question of I go up there, I say this is my idea, everyone claps, we pass it, we go home. It's a very, very difficult, circuitous stance where you have to really come to some sort of terms with people who don't agree with you on very much. And so that's why it's very difficult to get these things done. If you give me a supermajority of Democrats, that's a different conversation. But that's not the reality here in Pennsylvania. I know it is in California. God bless them. But that's not the reality here, unfortunately.
And thank you so much. In Canada, one of the issues, we did it federally for medical cannabis, but one of the core issues over the last several years has been access to cannabis through storefronts. The government legalized it, but you could only access it through the mail, and that created its own set of really unique and in many instances quite serious problems for the actual people that are trying to access the substance. In Pennsylvania, could you talk about how medical access worked? Were there storefronts?
Yeah, but I mean, if I can just say parenthetically, this all shows how irrational all of this is. I mean, if there was medicine that was effective as cannabis, but it came from like the yucca plant, it would be in every CVS. You can go pick it up. No one would think twice. It's just these lingering reefer madness misconceptions and irrational positions that are causing these sorts of problems. In Pennsylvania, the medical bill said that we gave out 50 licenses. Each licensee could open up to 3 dispensaries, which means that's up to 150 dispensaries. Plus, there's another type of dispensary involving medical research, but we don't have to get into that. Let's just deal with the regular dispensaries for now. So it's 150 dispensaries. We don't quite have that many yet. Some are still up and running, or getting up and running, maybe 120 or something. But they are storefronts. And the interesting thing is, and one of the things I try to tell people who are concerned about this, even on the recreational side, they're often the nicest storefront in the neighborhood. I mean, there is nothing about a cannabis dispensary that hurts property values, that degrades the community. In fact, there's two. If you're going to commit a crime or do something illegal, there's 2 places you definitely don't want to do that. Number one is a casino, and number one is a cannabis dispensary for the same reasons. You're being filmed from 8 different directions at any moment. So their stores are beautiful. People go in, they have to show ID. It's very professional. We've had not one incident. And it's one of the few industries that's doing better during the coronavirus situation than it was before. So, if you're worried, some people come in, they're worried, oh my God, it's like we're going to have a cannabis dispensary in our neighborhood. There goes the neighborhood. And first I look around the neighborhood, I'm like, there goes where? I mean, it's not like it was wonderful to begin with sometimes, but in whatever neighborhood it was in, it will improve the neighborhood. But yeah, we have 100. So like in my neighborhood, I live in Upper Marion, Pennsylvania, Wayne, technically. There are, I think, 4 dispensaries within 5 or 6 minutes of my house, and they're all doing well, and they're all assets to the specific communities that they're in.
That's super fascinating. Is there discussion in your assessment for adult use? Are you looking at other states and how they're doing their production and storefront issues? I think there's probably 12 million people in Pennsylvania, I think. 150 stores for adult use. Recreational probably won't cut it.
I'll tell you, Jack, it's interesting. And everything that we've put in the bill on recreational is a product of hundreds of hours of acrimonious debate, and yelling and screaming at each other, calling each other's names, insulting each other's ethnicity. We really went for it, but because these are really tough questions. We opted ultimately to take more of a free market approach, which I know as a liberal Democrat sounds like that discongruent. But I thought other states it's different on medical side because you're dealing with medicine, right? But on the recreational side, I thought other states try to overthink things and overregulate things. And frankly, I don't know how many dispensaries there should be. I don't know how many dispensaries the market will bear. The market should determine that. I don't as a legislator, I don't decide how many pizza shops are open. As many open as want to, and the ones that make good pizza do well, and the ones that don't go out of business. And that's like how it works in America. And I'm fine with that. So unlike medical, we have, there are background checks you have to go through. There are, you have to prove that you know what you're doing type of thing, and you have to prove that you're not corrupt. But essentially, we don't say that there's X number of dispensary licenses. There's X number of, whatever. What we do is, because we want to protect the medical side, there will continue to be the same number of medical licenses, and medical is different. Medical, some strains aren't intoxicating; they wouldn't be of interest to a recreational buyer. Also, eventually we want to get it covered by insurance, and so recreational's not going to be covered by insurance, but medical. So, medical will have and medical can opt into recreational fairly easily. So they will have a large head start with branding, with loyalty, with community outreach. And that's part of what we give them. On the other hand, they will have competition, and eventually, it may take a while to ramp up. So we're trying to do right by both sides and try to find the sweet spot. So as we think about adult use, we think about recreational, we think about a market where people can get involved if they think they have something they can contribute, and then either they will or will not, and the market will sort that out.
Pardon me, gentlemen. This is Lennie. I am a pharmacist, by the way. Thanks for coming on today. It was interesting. I really appreciate you saying segregating the recreational adult use versus the medical. A big issue in Canada is cannabis medical is taxed. Is that something, I'm not familiar with the rules in Pennsylvania. Is that something that may be different when your adult use comes out? Is the taxation going to be slightly different for adult use versus the medical or potential coverage? And as a pharmacist, I've always found it very, again, I understand the FDA rules, things like that nature about the controlled substance and issues, why it is not in, you said, like a CVS or things like that, like traditional medicines. I understand some of the politics behind that, but could you potentially see that transition out? Maybe medicinal cannabis goes into the pharmaceutical world as your adult use grows, and those dispensaries become a little bit more adult use.
Well, that you asked. There's a number of questions there.
Sorry, it was loaded. Sorry.
I just hope I can remember them all. Number one, on the taxation, yes, that's another thing we do to give the medical market an advantage and a way to survive, which is that we tax medical. There's a 5% excise tax. Adult use in my bill has a 17.5% tax. So there's a significantly higher tax for recreational than there is for medical.
Very good.
Which would make sense. Because it is, again, medicine should be taxed at the lower end because it's it's
100%.
Right. So anyway, that's to answer that question. But you asked a broader question, which is really interesting, and one of the things we spent a lot of time talking about. And if anyone else has any thoughts too, because I'm not saying we got it right, because it's a really interesting question on both the medical and recreational side. There is the question of, at a certain point, does it become corporatized? Does it become like, on the medical side, CVS and Rite Aid and Walgreens come in, and suddenly there's no room anymore for the medical dispensary, right? And that's true of the adult use side. People will think that eventually there'll be Budweiser weed, and there'll be Marlboro joints or Philip Morris or whatever. Now, that will require the elimination of the Schedule I designation. I also think that will require the elimination of things like 280E, which make it very difficult to be profitable. But if there's a lot of money may be made by pharmaceutical industries, for example, I think you will see things like 280E go away because they have a very good lobbying efforts. One of my and I have, by the way, I have ADD, so you just have to, don't expect a linear answer. But I would say that one of the things that I want to work on going forward with my life is that the cannabis industry writ large is not nearly as potent politically as it needs to be. It is we do not have the infrastructure necessary to defend and advance the industry in a way that other industries do, and a way that other interests do. Like, for example, I'm not a big fan of the NRA personally, but they're very good at what they do. All right. We don't have anything like that. Like right now, if I'm running for office in a competitive seat, and I know that if I'm with the NRA, they're going to be with me. And if I'm against them, the wrath of God is going to come down on my head. Right. No one's afraid of the cannabis industry. Okay. We're not recruiting candidates. We're not nurturing candidates. We're not picking targets of people who are hostile to us. We don't have think tanks. We don't have a recognized spokespeople around the country. We don't have a rapid response operation. We don't have messaging discipline. There's a lot of things we don't have that I would like to contribute to at some point. But coming back to your question, the reason I bring that up is because the groups that do have those operations are, for example, the pharmaceutical industry and the alcohol industry and the tobacco industry, all of whom are sort of lurking predatorily, waiting for cannabis to be legally respectable. They don't care about actual respectable, but they care about legally respectable. And so how do we make it so that the entire industry doesn't become Budweiser? Now, my philosophy is, let's talk about recreational for a while. I think there's room for Budweiser, but I like the model that we've seen in beer where there's Budweiser, but there's also hundreds of craft beers, right? And there's a lot of local brewing and selling going on. And then some companies break through and become, very, very, very profitable on a large scale. And so I want to the extent that I can, in Pennsylvania, I would like to steer the structure we're creating for the industry towards one that allows both large and small players. All right, because you're never going to be able to keep out large players. They have too much money. That's one of the things money buys you. It buys you access. But we don't want them crowding out the market, so there's no choice and there's no opportunity for people who, and of course they will be pushing changes in legislation and regulation that benefit them and hurt the small people. So we have to fight for that. Now on the medical side, if let's say we got rid of Schedule 1 tomorrow, and let's say insurance started covering medical cannabis, which it should, I think you then start seeing Rite Aid and Walgreens try to get in. And then what happens to, in Pennsylvania, Alera or Keystone or, any of the dispensaries. And so that's a real question, and I don't know the answer to that question. But I want to do everything I can to at least give the smaller guys, by the way, who are not so small, but I mean they can't compete with Walgreens. I want to give them a fighting chance, and so I'm always looking for ideas as to how to make that happen.
Wow, excellent answer, sir. And any chance you got dual citizenship? Because I'd love you to come to Canada.
I love Canada. I took my wife for our anniversary to Montreal, and
excellent answers.
Well, thank you.
So, anybody else have any questions for Daylin?
I would love to ask one more.
Go right ahead.
Inspired by your response. You mentioned at the beginning that you were making efforts to have social justice involved in sort of your during your stakeholder meetings and during the preparation of the legislation. Are you taking any steps to try to have individuals with records for cannabis to be able to and allowed to participate in the industry? You mentioned they should show that they have experience. So certainly if they have experience, sometimes they've been exposed to the criminal justice system.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And yes, social justice, just for me philosophically, but putting aside what a saint I am, we're just not going to get a bill passed if we don't have social justice. You not only have to get Republicans to agree to run it, you have to get like the Black Caucus to support it. You have to get others. So social justice, for lots of reasons, has to be part of this. And so what we did, among other things, is we said that any cannabis-related offense would be automatically expunged, and the burden would be on the local district attorneys to go back through their records and make motions to expunge all of these. And so once they're expunged, because keep in mind, Pennsylvania, once you're convicted of a crime, you have to check a box whenever you apply for a job. You have, there are certain professions you can't work in at all, like school teacher or nurse or whatever. So it's really consequential. And so we're going to expunge, which means it never happened, anything that would be legal under the bill. There are some cannabis crimes that would still be illegal, but they're not, the vast majority, that would not be the case. Now, if you're convicted of fraud or other things that might make you a bad bet, that's a different story. But it's expungement. It's anyone who's in prison solely for a cannabis-related offense would be immediately released within 60 days. I mean, it is, if you're in jail for robbing a bank and possessing marijuana, you still got to serve the bank robbing stuff. Okay. But so, and any marijuana offense would not be an impediment to obtaining a state license in the cannabis industry or to working in the cannabis industry in any capacity. It's not, to me, morally defensible to say this is no longer illegal, but we're going to continue to punish you for it. That's just that, no. And so we've done that. Other social justice components include, we did a lot with micro licensing. We did a lot with changing the requirements. It's complicated, but in terms of reporting and so forth to the state, And we have home grow. You can get a delivery license. You can participate in the industry that way. We're opening up cannabis lounges, so you can open up a cannabis lounge or work at a cannabis lounge. And the micro licenses are interesting because they will give people an opportunity with almost no investment, because we give free training. You have to take a course, like you get certified. It's like a 4-hour or 6-hour course, but you have to take the course, but it's free. And then you can get a micro license to grow a smaller amount, and you can only sell it to the grid, because you're not going to have the wherewithal, most of these people, to do the sort of testing and other things that you would need to get to an ultimate consumer in a way that's safe. But I've seen this work. I was at Harborside in California when people would bring in bags of weed and they would get a receipt for it, and they would say, all right, we're going to test it, or whatever we're going to do, we'll let you know we're interested. If you're good at it, people will buy it from you. If you're not good at it, they won't. My guess is most people won't be. I think people underestimate how difficult it is to grow something that's really good and marketable. But that's fine. That's like any industry. 80% of restaurants fail in the first 2 years. So, that happens. But my guess is that people who are very good at what they do will sell it to the grid and then eventually be hired. Like if there's some guy who's growing great stuff and I have a dispensary or I have a grow facility, at a certain point I'm going to be like, dude, why don't you come work for me? And I'll pay you a lot of money, and you can grow a whole lot of this stuff, and we can both, And so I think you'll see a lot of that, and that's how capitalism works. And so, but we've tried very hard to do a lot of social justice components to the bill, including reporting on things like minority participation and things like that. So. Hopefully, we were the first bill, I'm proud to say, the first medical bill that became law that had a silo. It was a competitive process to get points, to get licenses, and there was different silos, your security, your whatever, and one of them was your diversity. And so you had to explain the diversity. And I was frankly worried that we were going to be challenged in court because the current Supreme Court is not big on that sort of thing. But we weren't, and it's worked out great. And we have a fairly diverse. There was some sort of like, all right, we're going to hire a black guy, or we're going to hire a lesbian, and we're going to give them a title, and but they're not really going to be part of it. They're going to be window dressing. There was some of that. I can't pretend that didn't happen at all. But I think for the most part, our diversity is legitimate, so we're happy about that.
That's fantastic, and is just such evidence of the right way to do, as you mentioned, capitalism. But that raises actually a really great question. I know in many states, the statewide legalization prompts a lot of state banks to increase their business because banks that operate in more than one state run into concerns there. Could you speak to the banking concerns faced by the industry in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I can. But first, I just want to say that Leonard has some kind of mask on. Please tell me that someone else sees that.
Al made me do it.
I asked him to just do it.
Al made me do it.
Nonchalantly.
That's fine. I just want to make sure that because if I was going to have to excuse myself.
I'm sorry.
That was Al.
I'm a bit of a prankster.
Banking is one of the major problems with the industry. As you know, there's the Banking Security Act. There's a bunch of acts, federal laws that make it very difficult for banks, at least in their perception, to do cannabis work. And that has led to a lot of bad things, all cash. The first time I went to Colorado after they became the first state to legalize recreationally, the first dispensary I went into, the first thing I saw was two dudes with semi-automatic weapons. I'm like, this isn't very inviting, But the reason they showed me is in the back there were duffel bags with hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash, which is a real target, And I'm like, this is not good. I mean, first of all, I'm guessing in a purely cash business like that, the state's not getting 100% of the taxes it's owed. and it puts people at risk, and it's just bad for a lot of reasons. I've had a lot of people meet with me who have said that they have solved the banking problem. In fact, I met with one by phone just 2 days ago, and I'm going to look into it. I'm not a banking expert. I've learned a bit about it, but it is really difficult. Some banks will do some services, like they'll give you a debit card, but not a credit card. Other banks charge an enormous premium, which is an industry that's already being pressed financially by things like 280E. So there are a lot of problems with the banking thing. In Pennsylvania, there are some credit unions, some savings and loans that are doing things and so far getting away with it. There are some banks, Wells Fargo, for example, has closed accounts of people completely who were not even, they were tangentially involved in the cannabis industry, but they didn't even touch the plant. They weren't growers. They weren't dispensers. They made like filters for extraction, machines or something, and they closed their accounts, and it's like, Jesus, So this is a problem we need to solve. As you know, there's the SAFE Act is pending in Congress, and that would help. So, but banking is a huge problem right now. We need, in order for look, I don't know how many of you went to MJ Biz last year, but I'm told there were 46,000 people there. Right?
It was huge.
What's that?
It was massive.
It was massive. I was there. I didn't count the people, but lots of people and lots of booths of businesses. This is a major industry, and not only that, there are billions of dollars sitting on the sidelines waiting for more predictability and stability. So, we need to solve this problem. This is just irrational. One guy came to me that his bank is going to have a separate room, which was not owned by the bank, and it's like, without thinking through that, okay, so people could drop off money, I guess, but it wasn't the bank accepting the money because that room was owned by someone else in the bank. Like, the fact that we have to jump through these hoops is just stupid. All right. And, I'm hoping that we see some movement in federal on the passage of the SAFE Act would really help. So that's my answer.
We had the same issue with our banks here in Canada.
What happened?
What they did is they started closing accounts for the people that were actually in the legal industry, not just the illegal industry, but the legal industry. So a lot of the licensed producers had to go and scramble to find banks and institutions that they could put their money into. They've seemed to have backed off from that.
There's still some double standards.
But yeah, there is. It's definitely screwed up.
They are also giving the new storefronts in in Ontario, the walk-in stores issues too.
With the banks.
Yeah. It's causing a lot of issues because they can't open a bank account, and then you've got the same issue that you guys are having there, Daylin, with money laying around, lots of it. Jack, are you? Jack's pretty closely tied to what's going on in the industry here in Ontario. Are you seeing any loosening with the restrictions on banking here, Jack?
So I saw a tightening of restriction. Daylin, in Canada, we've got sort of a what's called a Schedule 1 or a Schedule 2 bank. So these are generally larger financial institutions that have protections in place that satisfy Canada federally and then various provinces on a provincial or territorial level. What happened for the vast majority of the industry was that there were a number of very small credit unions in British Columbia that were more comfortable with businesses in the process of being licensed than other banks, and they basically scooped up the entire industry.
Oh, wow.
However, there was essentially a crackdown from the provincial government in British Columbia that resulted in those credit unions they would have won if they wanted to fight about it and say, look, like, you legalized it. We're a Schedule I bank. But they're a small credit union that could not afford a protracted legal battle with a provincial government. So they kicked out hundreds, more like thousands of these accounts. In Ontario specifically, as far as banking goes, in Canada, we've got what's called the Big Five banks. Only one of them will even accept a legal cannabis business as a banking client. And they require a $7,000 non-refundable deposit even to consider accepting a client. And so, which is just offensive to me from so many levels. It's a licensed legal business. But what is happening now is a rise in credit unions that are in Ontario that are Schedule I or Schedule II that are starting to offer more affordable banking services, but they don't have as many locations. So you're seeing small credit unions in Toronto with maybe 4 locations suddenly gaining like 100 new clients that have cash deposits of $15,000 per day. So now you've got serious concerns over, okay, how is this money moving from this storefront to the bank, right? It's dangerous if you have a large amount of cash. And that's the issue you saw in Colorado with armed guards and things like that. So the Ontario situation, unfortunately, is mired in just what Daylin talked about, which is this reefer madness thinking that a cannabis business licensed by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario is different in any way whatsoever from, a local restaurant that serves, beer with your chicken wings or whatever.
Yeah.
There's no functional difference in law, but from a stigma perspective, there's a huge difference. Are you seeing a rise in the use of credit unions and things in banking institutions of that nature in Pennsylvania, Daylin?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing people do whatever they can do. They go to credit unions. And there's always people who have a new take on the banking situation, and people are somehow getting by, but it's difficult, and it's expensive, and it's needless. So we're gonna I don't have any juice at the federal level at this point, but again, this is one of those things that it's not rational. It's not defensible, and if we had a stronger voice as an industry, we could get the general public to understand this. Keep in mind, medical, at least in Pennsylvania, is at 90% popularity. People who never would consider using pot when they were in high school or college or whatever are using it every day. When I go to senior centers and speak at senior centers, the most common questions used to be about free busing and stuff like that. Now it's always, where do I get my marijuana? And so people don't want this to be more expensive. They don't, more. It's just, if the public knew about this and we communicated better about this, I think there'd be a lot more pressure to fix this, because it's such an obviously boneheaded, thing. Even if you don't support marijuana or cannabis, if you think it should be illegal in all circumstances, this isn't the way to do it. Okay, and so it's this is just no one when they drafted the various fraud statutes at the federal level. No one had. They were trying to talk to people who were laundering, cocaine money from El Chapo. Okay, they weren't trying to stop, a licensed dispensary selling medicine to senior citizens. It just was never occurred to them, and so this law is being used in a way that was never intended to be used, and it just doesn't make any sense. So we've got to push to educate people, and the more we do, the more likely this gets fixed.
Now, you got something to say, Jack?
Oh, I just wanted to ask on that. That's so fascinating. I agree entirely. I've been thinking about your comments on Section 280E, which is essentially, it strikes me as a nasty tool for the IRS to target these businesses. Functionally, can you help me understand it? Does it mean that I don't understand how the IRS can demand tax dollars from these, because essentially they're doubling their tax because they're saying you can't deduct business expenses. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a few exceptions, but generally speaking, you can't deduct things that most other businesses deduct routinely. And again, the original intent was, if you were doing something, keep in mind, a lot of this stems from cannabis being a Schedule I narcotic. Again, cocaine is not a Schedule I narcotic. I mean, like this is being treated in ways that are completely irrational. And so, again, if you're laundering, $20 million of money that you got from selling, crystal meth on the street, we don't want that. All right, we want to make that harder. But that is not what's happening. It was never intended to be used for this purpose, and it's making it hard for businesses that are legal and businesses not only at the state level. I understand it's not legal at the federal level, but we've seen the federal government repeatedly say it's fine. Everything from the Comey memo to court decisions. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court just ruled it's an essential business. We went, in the context of COVID, we went from pariah to essential in like a year and a half. And I mean, it's like we have there's nothing that's rational about this law, about the state of cannabis law. And so we have to fix it, or we're going to keep having these stupid problems. They're just stupid problems.
Agreed.
I mean, there's a lot of problems the industry faces that are inherent in the industry. Sometimes you get mold, right? Sometimes the market goes up, it goes down. There are too many, too little. There's a glut. There's a shortage. All those things that affect every industry. But like these just stupid ass problems are so infuriating, and they're so obviously fixed. Right, and so, hopefully we'll be able to do that.
I wanted to give Kurt a chance to ask you what he wanted to ask you as well, because I know you have to get going. So, Kurt, go ahead.
Yeah, Daylin, thanks for coming by. Last year, one of the newspapers in Orange County, California, south of LA, did a multi-month investigative piece, and that actually resulted in threats to the author, unfortunately. From some people in the industry. Anyway, it showed that for every $1 that was spent in the state of California through the legal dispensary system, that about $7 passed hands on the underground market, a 7-to-1 ratio, pretty striking. You had mentioned earlier some of your tax rates and that you're proposing for adult use 17.5%. What was some of the logic behind coming up with that number? Like you say, lots of compromises have to be made, and there's pros and cons to a low rate, pros and cons to a higher rate.
That's a great question, Kurt. First of all, the thinking of it, like again, many hours yelling at each other about this.
I'm sure.
when you read the scholarship, and again, when I say we need a think tank, we need organizations that do the hard research to give credible data to guide people in the industry, much more than we do. We need a Brookings Institute, or
right.
If you know what ALEC is. I don't know if Canadians know what ALEC is, but it's the American Legislative Exchange Council. It is an organization that researches and develops proposed state legislation for conservative causes. We need like an ALEC of cannabis, right? So we need a lot more infrastructure than we have. But if you read the scholarship that's out there, it says that if you want to, 20% is sort of a magic number, we were told. Like, in other words, over 20%, you're going to foster the black market tax rate. You're going to foster the black market. Under 20%, you won't. And so we tried to keep it under 20%. The other thing we have to deal with, as I said before, politically, the Republicans control, and what's going to get them moving is the money that we can raise. So we can't have a that's so low that they're not going to be. It's not going to be worth it to them. So that, finding that sweet spot is very difficult.
Right.
What I try to tell people 17.5% should keep us away from exploding the black market. I forget what the rate is in California, but it was it was higher.
It's between 35 and 43%, depending on municipality. Berkeley takes it up to like 43%.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
at that point,
Crazy.
Look, I am not. Most people don't. There is still a black market for alcohol. I mean, there is still. Watches a show where they still brew it in the bathtub. It's they're always running away from.
I
the
love
cops.
moonshiners.
Like, there's still a market for black market whiskey. Who knew? But I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to. It's not worth it to me to hang out with a bunch of guys named Scooter and meet behind a barn. Okay, I'd rather just go to the liquor store inside my Wegmans or whatever. So, but if it was like triple the price, maybe I'd start thinking about Scooter. And so, same thing with cannabis. I'm going to go to a dispensary. All right, like I'm too old to be like hiding, going to underneath bridges and shit. All right, that's like not. But I mean, there is a point at which it just becomes prohibitive. So we want to keep it below that. So we thought 17.5 would get us enough money, but still not make it so it was prohibitive and therefore encourage the black market.
Right.
There'll always be some black market, but as there is for everything, there's a black market for cigarettes. There's a black market for everything. But we want the black market to be a fringe thing like it is for these other industries. We want the average person who wants some cannabis to say, I'm going to go to Rise. Up the closest one to me is Rise, right up the street. I'm just going to go there. And so that's the thinking. Now, did we hit that sweet spot? I don't know. We'll see. It's there's no way to know for sure.
Does your adult use include the self-production?
Home grow. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, you can grow up to 6 plants, and it's like one of our touchstones when we were drafting the bill, we had a few whenever we were debating something, we had a few core principles that we always tried to remind ourselves of. One of them was no stigma. All right. And so we don't do anything that acknowledges a stigma to cannabis. It's an intoxicant, so you have to treat it like that. But it should be treated very similar to alcohol. In alcohol, you can brew your own beer, you can distill your own whiskey, but you can't sell it because we have no way of guaranteeing safety or anything like that. It's the same thing with cannabis. You can have 6 plants, you can smoke them, you can have friends over to smoke them, but you can't sell it. And so we treat it just like it. Whenever there was something, how do we treat this? What do they do with alcohol? Let's treat it like alcohol.
That makes sense. Now, does your medical program allow home growing?
No, and in fact, it was in the bill. Wow. My bill originally had that. That's one of the compromises. I'll tell you the compromise, a little bit about that. There were a number of Republicans who were like, look, I believe this can be helpful to people, but I don't want to grow. I don't want, the image of people smoking weed is more than my district can handle because they still have it tied up in their mind with the hippies and burning your draft card and Jerry Garcia. And I would say, the average pot smoker doesn't look like Jerry Garcia anymore. They look more like Dick Cheney, but it's still like an image that people have in their minds. Right. So anyway, they're like, I can't do people growing the plant. And they said, I understand the plant is the best delivery system for certain medical conditions, but I can't vote for people smoking it. So what we did is we didn't put in the bill that whole flower was legal. We put in the bill that there would be a commission that would decide if whole flower should be legal. And that way, and then we stacked the commission. So we knew that they would say yes, and they did. And everyone was fine with that. But it gave people some plausible deniability. Well, I didn't vote for those hippies to be smoking weed, and so that's, so there's something about like a person having a flower in a bowl or a joint that still freaks some people out. And so we had to give that up to get the bill to run, and we had to have the commission, which went exactly as we hoped, but still, we had to have it. We couldn't have anyone directly voting for people smoking weed.
Wow.
I can understand that. I don't like the fact that they lost the ability to grow their own.
Yeah,
because it would be a definite cost savings, plus very therapeutic for them.
I agree, but I think in recreational, look, one of the things medical has done is it has, to a great extent, destigmatized the whole concept of cannabis.
Right.
And so I think it'll be a lighter lift to get home grow after 2 or 3 years we've had medical in a recreational bill than it would have been 3 years ago. I mean, This is evolving, and so you have to play the game and take it sort of in the way that makes sense.
So we haven't heard from Marijane or Darcy. You guys got anything you want to ask Daylin before he goes?
No, I'm just taking it all in. Thank you again for coming on. I kind of agree with Lennie. I wish you'd come to Canada. Do you want a job at Health Canada?
No, he doesn't want a job at Health Canada.
I will tell you this: I would like to eventually, and not that long in the future, do cannabis full time. So if you know anyone who has any interesting jobs, let me know, because I've been in the I've been in the legislature 18 years. And I think everyone should have. I was a lawyer for 17 years before that. So I feel like there's an arc to careers, and if you stay too long in one thing, you get stale. And frankly, my wife made a little joke. My two passions in life now are cannabis and animals. So she said I should do something with animals and combine the two. But I would love the funny woman. But cannabis is really. I feel like there's so much that needs to be done for cannabis now, and I'd love to spend some time doing that.
I have a quick question.
But anyway, look, I'm really grateful for you having me on.
You're very welcome.
I'm easy to find if anyone needs to get in touch with me, and if I can help you, please. This is what I want to do. So, thank you, and
You're
thank
very
you,
welcome,
Al, for
Dan.
putting this whole shindig together.
Well, when you want to come back, just let me know.
Leonard's still wearing the mask. Is that anyone?
No, I'm not wearing the mask. That's my butt in the back.
I'm sorry about that. I'm a bit of a prankster. I said
that was totally Al, by the way.
I said to him, I said, put on the glasses.
What's that?
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dan.
Take care. Thanks
a lot.
So we're going to take a quick break, I think, A little pee break. Marijane, what are you making?
I am making jewelry for a friend's wedding.
Ooh, okay. I'll put you on feature when we come back. We can watch Marijane making jewelry, and we're going to talk to Jack and Kurt and see what they have to say. We'll be right back. This is I got a song that I enjoyed. It's Jack Johnson and Friends, Better Together. It was done at the Kakula Festival. This year, they did a live at home thing, and we'll be right back.
Tug lightly on this bowl of mine. Well, my screen has seen some better times. Well, my buddy poked a hole, now my weed falls deep inside. Please tug lightly on this bowl of mine.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
One, two, 1, 2, 3. Combination of words that I could put on the back of a postcard. No song that I could sing, but I can try because this is your heart. And these are our dreams, and They are made out of real things, like a shoebox of photographs, sepia tone loving. Love is the answer, at least for most of the questions in my heart. Like, why we're here and where do we go and how come it's so hard? It's not always easy and sometimes life can be deceiving. But tell you one thing, it's so much better when we're together. It's so much better when we're together. Yeah, look at them stars when we're together. We're so much better when we're together. Yeah, so much better when we're together.
All of these moments just might find their way into my dreams tonight, but I know that they'll be gone when the morning light sings, so brings no things.
But tomorrow night you see, they'll be gone too. Too many things I gotta do. But if all of these dreams might find their way into my day-to-day scene, I'd be under the impression I was somewhere in between, with only two, just me and you. Not so many things we gotta do, places we got to be. We sit beneath the mango tree now. Yeah, so much better when we're together. We're somewhere in between together. Yeah, so much better when we're together. Yeah, so much better when we're together. I believe in memories, they look so pretty when I sleep. Yeah, now when I wake up, you look so pretty, sleeping next to me. But there's not enough time. There is no song I could sing. There is no combination of words I could say, but I will still tell you one thing, we're better together. So much better when we're together. So much better when we're together. Take care, everybody. Aloha.
That was Jack Johnson and Friends, Better Together. This is the 420 Radio Show. We're live here at 420radio.ca. Jack, before I forget, I got to ask you a question. They recently have pulled delivery and pickup, like curbside pickup. That doesn't seem, even though I'm really not a supporter of this whole legal thing, that doesn't seem fair to me to allow citizens to open up a business and have a really rocky start and then find a way that it just might help thrive with delivery, especially, and to just pluck that away. Is that not okay?
It sucks, certainly, and I'm involved in some active lobbying and fighting to have that changed. I'm very hopeful that it will be changed, but what's even worse is that same curbside pickup and delivery option, which is quite sensible for businesses operating, especially right now. They're now offering it, so bars can do it. So bars can sell alcohol that way now. Yeah. but cannabis stores are back to in-store only, with delivery functioning just through the Ontario Cannabis Store and its warehouse. So it's quite a So I hear your frustration. I feel the same way, and many of my clients feel the same way. I'm going after them, but it remains to be seen what happens with it. I'm hopeful that they come to their senses, but
we've had conversations about legal stores and stuff recently, and this happens, and for me, that's a real deterrent, because I'd like to offer a drive-through, I'd like to offer a delivery service. I know that I would focus primarily on the medical community, because that's just where I am, and I know that it's needed, and the stores are not doing that. The legacy dispensaries are still, that, right? It's a sad predicament. It's brutal. You hear Canada is flourishing in cannabis. Come on up here. We'll show you how flourishing we are. Kurt, did you have anything that you want? As we found at the beginning of the show, Kurt and Jack have actually been chat buddies for a while. Is there anything?
I've been like a fanboy since I think like 2009 or something.
There you go. So why don't you guys have a chat?
You're reminding me how long I've been doing this.
You're like 2005. I think your first articles were coming out. Maybe.
I think the first one was 03, like late 03, and then 04 it kind of went. Yeah. So
I love it.
Yeah.
We're going to watch Marijane make
not quite
jewelry.
As expensive back
you guys
then.
are
They're
talking.
in college now, so.
Wow. We're all a little older. I've been doing this for 12 years.
Yeah.
So what did Kurt, as the token American left here in the show, what did he think of that lovely senator?
I think it was very informative. He dropped some science on me with respect to how Pennsylvania is approaching it. And I was happy to hear that there was some constructive logic, for lack of a better label, for their 17.5% tax. Now, maybe it's just because I'm such an arduous consumer, but I would rather see tax rates in the 8 to 12% range, even though I don't have a lot of really, solid think tank data and metrics behind that statement. But now, granted, California at 35 and some jurisdictions being over 40% tax, where you think, okay, on the underground, and the legal markets have to steal the business from the underground. We know that's the way it works, right? Those are established channels on the underground, and the legal markets are necessarily stealing the business. They do create some new business from consumers who would never engage if it's not legal, right? They're just not going to frame themselves as criminals. But gosh, I just wonder if a 17.5% compared to a zero, right? I'm like, okay, I buy $100 worth of cannabis, and on the underground it cost me $100. And through that system, I got to pull another 20 spot American out of my pocket.
See, as Canadians, 15% is kind of on par.
I just got $100.
At least East Coast Canadians.
I just got $100 ounce in Alderville on the reservation at First Nations, but
it's more than 15% because
it's the duty. I know.
There's the duty on there first, and then the 15%. So we're getting taxed on the tax.
Yeah.
But
what's your total tax rate? It depends on province, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But Lennie, to throw a question to you, do you think that the 5% tax would be acceptable in Canada for medical?
I think, well, again, don't forget, I don't know U.S. data. Like, I don't know if there's tax on a prescription in the U.S. Canada is very anti-medicine tax anything. 5% is pretty minuscule, so if it was some, like, that's pretty tiny surcharge. I can live with that. I did like it was very distinct from the adult use. So is that the new term? I'm not allowed to call it rec anymore. It's adult use.
Yeah, adult use is the new term.
All right, I'll fucking stop calling it rec.
Sorry, don't be a racist.
But I like he's trying to give some sort of action to maintain medical. I like that.
Yeah.
It's, again, is he perfect? No, but I think he would admit that. So he was a good fellow. I liked him.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how medications are taxed or used in the U.S. I don't know if they are tax exempt.
I'll go find out.
What did you think of him, Kurt? I mean, you're in the States and not in the same state, but, you know.
Well, I grew up and lived a large part of my adult life in Ohio, adjacent west of Pennsylvania. My daughter is in college in Pennsylvania, so I do feel kind of an attachment to the state, and like I got a pound of flesh in the game, so to speak. I thought he was quite reasonable. I'm not going to applaud his or criticize his political party. I try to, stay with the science and stay away from that. But I like that when we asked him hard questions, he had reasonable logic and sometimes even metrics and data behind that, right? I know politics is politics, but when we make, right now in the States, let's not even get into this, but we have certain people in Washington, D.C. basically saying science doesn't frickin' matter. As a technical writer, that disturbs me.
Wow.
So he brought science to the table. He's a good guy.
Prescriptions aren't taxed in the U.S.
There you go.
Yeah.
As I said, you know what? You got to start somewhere. I don't know why the governments don't try to treat themselves as a little bit more corporate. So if I came out with a product, say $55.98 for a product, where did I pull up that number, guys?
Well, that's
and it was a little too, and it was a little too high. I would probably bring my price down.
I just caught that, Lennie.
I know. I would bring that price down. So I don't know why the governments, like, I would have started out probably a 5 or 10% tax. See, like Kurt said, like, the black market is who you're trying to take from. So you got to be competitive. I would rather sell a whole lot of cannabis at a low rate and get all that tax dollars and then reevaluate it yearly. It's like, you know what? I think I can throw it up a couple more percent. Almost like they did with cigarettes years ago.
Right, yeah.
Right.
But it just seems like they want to come out with a fucking massive shotgun tax, and you're still leaving 75-80% of the business on the table. So I just don't really get the logic.
Yeah,
well,
like
see,
in California.
At $55.98, on the black market,
I shouldn't have opened that can of worms. Sorry.
Right, but on the black market, that $55.98 is actually $20.
Yes, exactly. And I get it's got to be a little higher than the black market. Even a bootlegger of cigarettes or alcohol, obviously, it's cheaper. But there's a balance, and I think it was the senator that kind of said there is something for safety and convenience. You're not going to get a 60-year-old. Like, never got pot under a bridge, but I know what he was getting at.
We used to smoke it under a bridge too.
Yeah, that's the politician, right? The politician is under the stairs in the dark stairwell or under the bridge.
But there is people that believe that, and even I'll say it. Our CEO, like, he's black market history, and his whole thing, if the price is close enough, and I know I can get off at 5 o'clock or run to a dispensary or a liquor commission, grab my 3.5, and go home and pay maybe an extra $5. That's a lot easier than me calling my guy. What time can I come over? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
exactly. Like I said, Leonard, yesterday I was at the reservation. I was in Alderville, and we went in and. A lot of, well, you know this, Marijane, because you're up in that area. There's the Green Mile. They call it the Green Mile. Have you been up there, Jack? Scramble for the phone. My mute.
I've had files up there.
Yeah.
So I'm very aware of the Green Mile. I can't.
I know. I am a firm believer that I should be able to walk into a store, touch it, smell it, look at it, ask questions and stuff like that, and walk out and go home. I mean, and that's what you can do on the reservation here in Ontario.
Yeah.
Now, how legal is that for me to do that, Jack? I don't want to hear the answer, but I'm asking the question.
So, there's my position is that the legality of it is far grayer than government would have people believe.
Mm-hmm.
But on a strict reading of the law, it's prohibited, particularly as I suspect you were purchasing it for medical purposes. And that's part of the issue that I was speaking about earlier, right, is that sections 144 and 150 of Part 14 of the cannabis regulations specifically prohibit a medical cannabis patient from directly in person accessing their medical cannabis. So it's really frustrating. Now that was directly challenged and in a somewhat roundabout way.
Well, that sounds like a human rights
by the Alberta Court of Queen's Bench in the Howell decision, but ultimately the law changed. Right, that's the ACMPRs, not Part 14 of the regs now. So the short answer, Al, is that technically it was unlawful, and that because it was unlawful, it would be considered illicit cannabis, and so even the possession would be unlawful.
I better smoke it.
Proving that is the Crown's onus.
Yes.
So my position is that it's not possible to prove that cannabis, whether it was grown pursuant to a license or if it wasn't grown pursuant to a license. My position is genetically or botanically, it's not an identifiable distinction between them.
Well,
it's not valid. But the short answer is that technically you're not allowed to do that. So the sale to you was unlawful, which is, according to the government, a far more serious offense. For you, it's simple possession of it.
Yes.
So you how much did you purchase?
A couple ounces.
Sorry.
Couple ounces. That's okay. The wife calls. You have to go.
Sorry.
Okay.
So ultimately, technically, the possession would be unlawful. Now, it's
arguable,
the defense
though,
is so
right?
strong that it's unlikely. It's likely not prosecutable, in my opinion. But certainly, I've had lots of cases where they tried, and so.
Aside from them seeing me physically walk out of one of these stores with it in my hand, they wouldn't know where it's coming. I could have grown it,
Correct. Now, you would only lawfully be entitled to possess 30 grams of it, whereas you say you had 60. So.
Oh, but
so
I'm medical.
Too much.
Oh no, but I'm medical. So then I don't get the 150.
That's correct.
See, I didn't want to.
If you were
didn't want to know the
you'd
answer.
be lawfully, you'd be lawfully entitled to 150 grams plus 30 grams of recreational.
Oh, so that's 190, really. 180.
It's 180.
Yeah. I'm dyslexic.
Wow.
Shut up, Marcel.
Math wasn't a strong suit.
No, it was not. It was not. Wow.
Could you argue that, Jack? Math wasn't my strong suit.
I've tried that before. Yeah.
Did it work?
Sort of. Sort of. And an honest but mistaken belief is that's a mistake of fact, and that's a winnable defense. And I have one on that.
Unfortunately,
reasonably honest but mistaken. So, to give you an example, there's a case with someone with a license for 1,700 plants, and they had maybe 17,000. That's not necessarily an honest but mistaken belief. But someone with a license for 40 grams and they have 41 or a reasonable error, that's a triable defense that a jury would be entitled to acquit you on that.
But let's be honest here.
I've done that.
Let's be honest here, Jack. Okay. In reality, the only way that's going to happen is if you're doing something stupid. right?
No, I don't agree.
No?
Mistakes
Okay.
happen all of the time, and
yes,
certainly not going to get me on video saying that.
No. What I'm getting
valid
at,
defense is not a valid defense.
What I'm getting at is, if you're speeding down the highway and you've got 2 ounces in your car, that's a stupid thing to do, because if you get pulled over and they find it, you're going to lose it. You're going to get charged. You're going to get, you're going to go through the whole gambit of things.
Only break one law at a time.
That's right.
It's always a good rule of thumb.
That's what we say in the States.
I think I heard an American lawyer told me one time, good advice is don't break the law when you're breaking the law.
Right.
But ultimately, certainly if you have cannabis in your vehicle in Canada, regardless of province, and some provinces are worse than others.
Put it in your
on the
trunk.
Provincial regs, it has to live in your trunk.
Yes.
It should not be readily available. It is just so easy for police to charge you for readily accessible cannabis products.
Not
and
even-
it gives them grounds just to go through your entire vehicle. And whether you have something illegal that they might find or not, the invasion of your privacy is so offensive to any rational sense of liberty.
And
So, don't do it.
Don't put it in your glove box, lockable or not, because
Right.
I've had a friend, I won't say who, her and another friend were getting on the highway in Hamilton and got pulled over, and they could smell it, asked if there was cannabis in the car. The friend who was not driving said, yes, I have some. There was no argument, just a statement by the officer. Please put that where the driver can't get at it. It's illegal for you to have it in the car next to her. And they let her go. Okay? She got a friendly warning. That's not going to happen very often. Okay?
No.
It live in the trunk.
Trunk's a good rule.
First thing
Trunk's
I
a good
do,
rule, but trunk's a good rule especially for us, because when we come out of work, we smell like pot.
Okay, this is what I do.
Stink of weed.
I take my bag, my recyclable bag from cafe, and I zip up my weed in there, and I put it in my secret compartment in my trunk. I can't access it. The dog could. She can have it if she likes, I guess. But,
Listen, I'm dreading the next fucking roadblock I ever hit, because I'm going to get searched so fucking bad.
Are you known for working in the industry there, Len?
What's that?
Are you guys known for working in the industry there around? Do you guys get pulled over?
It's no secret what I do in Truro. I know
Have you been
quite
pulled
a
over
few
for it?
Of the police officers.
Yes.
Not all of them. They have their duty. They're going to smell it on me when I get pulled over, so they're going to ask if I have any. They'll probably ask to search my vehicle. I'm going to have to let them. I do on occasion, obviously, have it in my trunk, and I'll be okay.
I honestly think we should be given cards.
Everybody, or just you guys?
That we work for a licensed producer, so of course we're going to smell like cannabis.
Has that ever been on the table, Jack?
Yeah, I've litigated it extensively.
Really?
John Conroy has a really hard-fought case in BC, but the BC Court of Appeal is not supportive of the odor. So odor is a justification for entry to a vehicle.
It is.
It shouldn't be, and I'm actively trying to beat that because I don't consider it specifically for. I should get an affidavit from Leonard and Marcel on that issue, saying we work at a legal LP and our workplace smells like cannabis because that's what we do for a living, and I'm neither impaired nor am I in possession of it, but my vehicle reeks of cannabis because I'm inside of it, and I've had that file. Now the problem is that my client then had a huge amount of cannabis in his vehicle. So but at the same time, the police officer didn't know that.
How strict are they down where you are, Kurt?
not. But it's like we're saying here: wrong place, wrong time. I don't think it matters which of the 50 states you're in. If you get pulled over for some other infraction, failure to use signal or speeding, whatever.
It leads to other things. Those are the
your car
stupid
just
things.
reeks. You just smoked a joint, or you got a pound in the back seat, or whatever. You might get the shakedown, and it might not be a pretty outcome, even in legal states here.
Yeah, well, it come on now. Does anybody know the worldwide percentage of people who are actually, medical or not, using cannabis? Is there any stats like that?
I've seen some numbers, but I always ask myself, how do you know? Such a rough estimate.
Yeah.
Now, we have some intelligent ways of estimating things statistically and, gathering data like in research. But, boy, that's got to be a really fuzzy number.
Wouldn't it be a nice number
I'm
to
asking
know?
Google.
Yeah, Marcel likes to Google. Do you know of any numbers like that, Jack? Jack's not muted.
Well, I think your data is always going to be lower than what the reality is. Like, I know some cannabis users that still do it in the closet. It's fucking illegal.
Yeah.
I would totally agree. Totally.
Like, it's weird.
Even in legal states, Nevada's fully legal, and there are people here who just will not admit it. But sometimes that makes sense if your neighbors are really conservative or evangelical or otherwise culturally opposed. Yeah, you don't want to stir the pot, so you're like, I'm just going to kind of keep that on the DL. So,
I love where I live. Okay, my building always smells like weed or something cooking. Okay, and there's 60 units, and there's probably 20 of us in the building. So, and recently, some people have moved out, and funny enough, 3 of them had grow ops in another room. So, I see it on the balconies when I'm outside. And this is just one building in Toronto. Okay,
nice.
Jack, are you getting an influx of tenants being kicked out or being threatened because of cannabis now? Even though it's legal.
There's a lot of people dealing with odor issues in condominiums, and there are some powers held by condominium corporations that are problematic for medical cannabis patients. So I do get my share of those files, and it's often a fairly delicate path towards making sure they don't lose their housing, which is always a really serious concern. Odor as an issue is one that's going to be it's been kind of an issue that I've been fighting around on a number of cases. So,
I have numbers.
Oh, he has numbers. Oh, wait, 1 sec. I got... Sorry.
Right on. I've got numbers. So a study that was done in 2007 under the United Nations World Drug Report, 2017, sorry, not 2007, 2017. Approximately 182,999,999 people use cannabis. But that number could be as high as 238 million people worldwide, which is nearly double the population of Mexico. And the reason for that is there's still so many people that won't admit to using cannabis that use it. So they're doing an estimate. So 238 million people worldwide. It's the most widely used drug in the world.
Well, I'll even just say anecdotally, like I live in a pretty normal conservative subdivision. You guys, Marcel and Darcy, where I live. I've been here 20 years, so a lot of the little children that used to be locally around me are older. Now 20, 21, 22.
Yeah.
They all use cannabis. They drink a little, but I visit their neighbors and their parents, and there's bongs out in the back fucking porch.
Not beer cans anymore. It's bongs.
No, they're all using cannabis.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which I think is fantastic, to be honest. Yeah, you can do the whole 25 age whatever bullshit, but whatever. I still think it's healthier than alcohol.
Well, yeah, and it also a lot less property damage by kids using cannabis than there is by kids using alcohol.
Honestly, there's no raving parties around my subdivision with alcohol, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I miss those, though.
What's that?
I mean,
I miss those.
Well, I used to be that guy 15 years ago.
Yeah.
With alcohol, and I've gotten away from it.
I had a Long Island iced tea when my sister and I went to the steakhouse last time, just because, and it went right to my head. I came home, threw up, and went to bed. That's the last time I drank.
I pretty much might have a beer a week after I beat Drew at golf on Thursdays.
Does he buy it for you, Lennie?
No, I buy it. Just celebrate my victory.
Make him buy it. You should make him buy it because he lost. Sorry, Drew.
So you beat him. You beat him this
I'd go
Thursday,
broke,
didn't you?
man.
I'm broke.
Who's got more money? Who's got more money,
Golf,
Drew
man.
or Len? What you doing, Mary Jane, over there? Let's see what Mary Jane's doing. I have to make the video bigger. There we go. So if you need stuff made for your wedding, call Mary Jane.
These are actually matching roach clips because I figured all the ladies are going to have their nails done up, so to match all of the
smart
jewelry.
too.
Somebody should come up with a set of fake nails that work just like a roach clip.
There you go.
Awesome. I don't do nails.
All the festivals and stuff, all the nails be fancy roach clips on them. Pretty cool.
I feel like if anybody would have thought of that, it'd be Amy Anonymous. By now, she would have had that
Fair
figured
enough.
out.
Yes, Amy would have done that. Darcy?
Al?
Do you have anything grow-worthy ready for us, or did you not put something together because of Dale and being here?
I didn't put something together, but I do want to talk about something though.
Okay,
but
you
wait,
go right ahead.
What did I tell you, Darcy?
Let me feature you, Darcy, on the video.
Be prepared, because I was going to make you do a grow segment regardless.
I have been playing.
Remember what I said, Marcel?
Camera director.
I don't care.
There's Darcy. All right, here we go. Spotlight.
No,
Darcy.
I just want to talk about security, Al.
Okay, go for it, buddy.
It's getting that time. Well, first off is your plants now are at that time of the year where your outdoors are starting to sex. So all you people out there, keep an eye on your plants. Make sure you pull your mail so you don't piss your neighbor off.
And make sure that nobody's stealing your plants right next door to your window.
Yeah, no. So that's what's going to lead me into my second conversation, which was security, which is a very important thing, because just because everyone's allowed to grow it doesn't mean everyone wants to grow it. Yes. There is still lazy people out there that would rather you do all the work and then they just reap your benefits. So,
and drunk teenagers. Don't forget drunk teenagers.
Yes, and drunk teenagers, as Marcel knows. So I just wanted to let everybody know that security is a big issue. So whether it's trail cameras, whether it's security cameras, whether it's little triple alarms that set off a little siren, these are all important things to consider right now, especially if you're growing outdoors. And signage is also another key. Put lots of signage up so people know that you have stuff on their property. So that way, if they do walk on, well, then they're taking their life into their own risk, I guess.
Hey, Jack.
Yes.
How? Since we're talking about growing, real quick. Sorry, Darce. Are things getting bad with that? With people being able to grow 4 plants as opposed to being? I'm a medical patient. Are there complaints coming out of the woodwork about people growing pot in their backyard now?
I haven't experienced very many.
That's good.
So the main issue, I think, number one is it's very access to genetics is
pretty controlled.
It's
Right.
so controlled. So I think a lot of people that would like to grow a couple plants can't get seeds to start. So a lot of those issues remain. It's also it's harder than people realize to grow cannabis. So I think a lot of people, they spend a significant amount of money for legal seeds, and then they can't get them to germinate or whatever. So it's not.
Yeah.
So they need advice from Darcy maybe to get it rolling. Certainly, I had. I had a client advising me that he, what was it? So you're only allowed 4 in a household. And I'm not going to tell that story. It's very silly.
All right.
But the main thing is no, the sky hasn't fallen in regards to more people growing it in their backyards.
Good.
I think largely people are getting the seeds through the gray market if they are actually getting lawful access to seeds, and most of it's lowrider crosses that are feminized. So they're small plants that they're not growing.
There must have been some kind of an influx a little bit because the police were getting called. Anyways, Darcy, go ahead and finish.
Just so before I finish there, I just wanted to agree with something that Jack said there. You are right. A lot of people are acquiring their seeds from that gray market, if you want to call it that, because there's so many seed companies and seed banks online that'll mail you seeds, and a lot in Canada that'll mail you seeds for that matter. But it's funny because a lot of them are autoflowers. And people have no clue what an autoflower is, so they're planting these seeds, and 30 days later, it's still only as tall as a pickle bottle, and what the hell? It's starting to bud already. And I've had multiple conversations with people about that.
What's going on, Darcy?
What was that?
I said, hey man, what's going on, Darcy? My plants are weird, man.
Well, it is, and I explain it to them that they have an autoflower, and they ask what an autoflower is, and I tell them it's a plant that has a set time to finish, so it doesn't matter with a life cycle, whether or not it's 12 hours or 24 hours. That plant's going to, mind you, lean more towards 24 hours if you want to get a maximum potency and quality out of that. But
so you just leave your lights on with autoflowers?
20 and 4 is the best cycle.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So really they're not cost efficient if you really want to think about it.
Well, no, your lights are on more.
Right?
That sounds like they're less environmental. I didn't realize that.
Well, but if you're a person that lives in a colder climate, they're awesome because you only get one growth cycle outdoors.
Okay.
So they work awesome. But if you're an indoor grower and you have a big veg room and you have some space over in the corner, sure, throw a few autoflowers over in there because your lights are on 18.6, so they'll still get to a really nice size and you'll still get some nice bud out of them. But if you were to take them and throw them into a 12-12 cycle, I find most autoflowers, from personal experience, they don't get very tall. 8, 12 inches, 14 inches at max.
What's the average weight? What's the average weight off of an autoflower? I've got seeds. They're called quarter pounders, and it says that you will get a quarter pound off of each plant.
And it's an autoflower?
Yes, sir.
And it's a 90-day autoflower?
That I don't know. It's just an autoflower feminized. There's 2 or 3 seeds in there. It was given out as a promotional thing at one of the events that I went to.
So then you can get into another whole thing that why Marcel was asking you why it was 90 days, because anything from 90 to 120, 130 days is what they call super auto. So they're
I
taking
can't
a lot of
reach
your
my
hay
bag, or
strains.
I would get them. Sorry.
Yeah. So what they're doing now is they're taking a lot of your hay strains, your long flowering strains, 14, 18, 20 weeks,
Yeah.
and they're crossing auto flowers into them and bringing the finishing time down, so that way these people can still enjoy these strains.
Okay, I got one more question for you, Darcy, and then I want to let Jack talk about his mushroom book before we go. Okay?
Yep.
I want Jack to send me his mushroom book before we go. Still waiting, Jack. I check my mail every day, and it's
now
not
I've
there.
forgotten what I was going to ask you, Darcy.
I'm waiting for copies. I am trying to do it. I promise.
I just want Jack to send me mushrooms. I don't care about the book.
I forgot what I was going to ask you
goodness.
now, Darcy. I'm sorry.
What's that, Al?
I forgot what I was going to ask you.
Anyways, very quick, I just want to finish off very
Okay.
quick there and say security is an important thing. So people, if you don't want to go out and spend the money monthly to get a security system set up in your yard, there is a lot of options out there online with outdoor security cameras. I purchased a few this week and have my yard all cameraed up already.
Some of it's wireless now, right?
They are wireless, so
That's very
and they're
convenient for people.
And they're so small that they're only as big as a pack of cigarettes.
Wow.
Yeah,
they're
but the
small,
problem
so you can hide
problem with wireless is they make it pretty easy for them to steal them.
Never thought of that.
Yeah, so you lose your camera. You still have the footage of them stealing it, which is always nice. But,
yeah, so there's lots of options out there for security cameras. So do your research. So that's all I wanted to say on that one.
Awesome. Thanks, Darcy.
One quick question to Jack there was before he starts his mushroom talk about his book was if you have an SUV, Jack, and you have how SUVs are open for the trunk, and your cannabis is in the trunk, and it's obviously your car's still going to stink because it's open. Have you had any issues with that yet?
That's a really good question, Darcy. It's a super live issue. I haven't litigated that. I mentioned an odor case from BC where my client, the odor existed, and my client had a good reason for the odor. It's just that in addition, there was lots of cannabis there as well, which caused an issue. But in a situation you're describing, technically you don't have a trunk in an SUV. So what do you do with that? It's a huge headache. What I say to clients is that, there's the letter of the law and there's the spirit of the law. So here you cannot comply with the letter of the law because you don't have a trunk, but you can comply with the spirit of the law. And the way you do that is you say, look, I'm in a great big vehicle. It's not readily available to me. So I'm going to put it in a super sealed container, preferably locked if possible. And it's going to be in the absolute back part of the SUV. Yeah, like that, and stored in a secure way. And frequently what I'll say to clients is that the police should have to do a deep, intense search to find it, because the deeper they're digging and looking and not finding anything,
eventually they have to stop.
The more of an argument I have that the search is unlawful. But ultimately, the situation you're describing, compliance with the letter of the law is not possible. And, laws have to be flexible. An SUV doesn't have a trunk. So how could the cannabis live there? But what I say is put it in the back. I told one client, I said, is there a wheel well, like where your spare tire is? He said, yeah. I said, put it in there.
I have an SUV, Jack, and in the very, very back, where my tow hitch and my tire stuff and all that are, there's enough room that I can put with my cannabis in there, zipped up. I literally could not. There's no way I could get it. There's no way I could touch it.
Okay? I love it. That's good.
So that's when somebody says, "Hey Al, I'm kind of getting kind of worried. I'm going to get my weed, and I come home even from a legal cannabis store." I used to have. We've had this conversation years ago, Jack. Living up in Mount Forest area, I would come down once or twice a month, get a quarter pound, and then go home, like scared shitless, because that's a 3.5 hour drive, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my sister's here.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so,
sis.
just as an added hint, though, if you smoke oil and hash and use tobacco
Just a sec.
as the burning element, it doesn't smell in your car. So,
Well, I can't.
other than
I can't
smell
comment on
tobacco.
you know I can't.
I know you can't, but I can.
It's just saying.
Just saying.
Not advocating, just saying.
I'm just saying. This is just physics and how shit works. If it doesn't smell like cannabis, then they don't know it's there.
Same as the stupid vape pens.
Yeah.
I think if anybody is going to call Jack with a case, it's probably going to be me, because this is how I keep my cannabis in this nice little box. And I generally, it's an ammo box, so it's for storing things. It comes with a lock. I'll keep a lock on it. But I also have an SUV, and all my back seats are mostly folded down. So I put the pickup inside. Well, today I had my cannabis box in the very, very back, but I also had a cooler back there. So when I took a corner, the cooler pushed the box all the way up.
Oh my goodness.
Feet.
Yeah.
So when I stopped, I looked, and I would have been able to reach back and grab the box, but it was locked.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. If anyone's going to call you, it's probably going to be me.
Well, I think you've got about the strongest defense I've heard, Marijane. So that nothing makes me happier than knowing someone's really concerned about compliance like that. So that's very good. But I don't think you're going to go down on that one. But you should, make efforts that the locked box is in the trunk area.
Bungee cord in the back.
You're not going to get a criminal conviction for an accident. Right? So,
okay.
That's good.
I love you, Jack.
Cover your ass.
So, Jack, tell us about, we've got, 10 minutes. Tell us about your new book and when people can get it, what it's about, and blah, blah, blah.
So the new book is the Psilocybin Chef Cookbook, which we're really excited about. And so it's essentially following from the Psilocybin Mushroom Bible that we released in 2016. So that book was the first new book about psilocybin mushrooms, I think in 15 years since the last one was published. So we were overdue and sort of focused on some revolutions that had happened in the mycology community, in which new cultivation techniques have sort of emerged. So my authors, one did a great book with like over 1,000 photos detailing every step in the process to do this. It's a wonderful title. And so they did that. And I kept saying, you should do a cookbook. And they did a cookbook. It's really cool. So it's beautiful, 6x9, so wonderful size, tons of photos, step-by-step instructions, and extraction methods for psilocybin mushrooms. So it's a pretty great title. I'm excited about it, and I'm hopeful that it's going to be, I think, the only psilocybin cookbook on the market. So that's pretty exciting. And
have you got a copy you can hold up? Have you got that copy you can hold up?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
the
people...
copy you were supposed to send me, right?
Nice.
Awesome.
Really
I'm looking forward to it, Jack, because
Yeah.
I'm microdosing these days, so
So it's a really fun title. Yeah, I'm excited about it.
And then well
written and well photographed.
Then one of these days we'll explain how people can just go out and find them in the wild.
Yes.
When, and which fields to look in.
I worked on a farm in Scotland, and they used to grow in the fields there. So I remember being, however old, it was a long time ago, but walking. So I was supposed to be building a fence, and they kept saying, "What are you doing in the field, walking along, staring at the ground all day?" And of course, I was looking for fairy rings.
They grow everywhere. Wherever there's shit, they'll grow.
So when is the book out, and where can people get it when it's available for pre-order, right?
Yeah, so I'm encouraging folks to pre-order the title through Amazon or through Barnes and Noble, Chapters, or all good bookstores, head shops in America, Canada, and the United Kingdom. So in the UK and Europe, it's available through Turnaround Publisher Services, turnaround-uk.com. In Canada, it's available from Chapters Indigo. Raincoast is distributing it, as well as Ingram. And for head shops, you can access through BOBHQ, who's my head shop distributor in Canada. And then in the United States, it's available through PGW, which is now Ingram. And the Instagram page is a great place to ask for if you're seeking wholesale orders. But I do have a wholesaler, but Ingram satisfies most of the orders. But vast majority will go through Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It's coming out in September 2020, but pre-orders are hugely appreciated because Amazon orders 3 times the number of pre-orders, so it's always nice after we pay that printing bill. We can
then they go out quicker, right?
Out the gate.
Yeah.
So very excited. So
Marcel, you cheap bastard, buy one. There's bills to pay.
No, I was hoping to have the book. I was hoping to have the book to review the book before.
Oh, you still buy one?
Oh, I'd still buy one.
All right, send it to Jack.
I'm trying. I have one copy that because the other copies are there was only 2, so I have one of them, so I'm not allowed to send it anywhere yet. So I am trying, Marcel.
All right,
Jack, send me some information, and I'm going to put a picture of the book, and I'll put it up on the website because.
That's so cool.
I enjoy support. You guys have
awesome,
always been
Jack
friends
sent me
of
the
the
Gold
show,
Bible, and I reviewed that for the show.
Yep.
And I ended up giving it away and buying my own.
There you go.
So I'll probably do the same thing with this one.
Cool.
You send me the book to review, I'll pass it on to somebody who can't afford it, and I'll buy my own.
Look at Kirk's frothing. Me. Kirk's going, me.
I was just going to tell Jack if he posts to Twitter, I'll certainly share with my followers. It sounds like good stuff. Really sexy design on the book. Looks really nice.
Oh, thanks, man. That means a lot. Thanks, man.
I got a shelf right here that I would love to fill up with Green Candy Press books, Jack.
I love it.
Well, you know where to order them.
Yep.
I just want to get Marcel's cooked mushroom, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll
the
buy
balls.
Marcel the book. There's the deal.
The balls, yes.
I love it.
Have you had any fun with edibles yet, Jack? Or
so I'm not allowed to.
Yes. All right.
Punch my ticket.
Let's skip that, and we'll say, tell people where they can find you, Jack, if they need any help legally.
So I'm kind of a terrible marketer for my professional. So it used to be I would just tell them to go to TucsonLaw.ca, which is the law firm I work for. But now I don't have a website, but you can find me on Twitter. Twitter, I'm just at Jack Lloyd Lawyer, and I think that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
And if you guys are in need of a lawyer, seriously, I can put you in touch. Just hit me up on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Jack, it's always a pleasure having you. And Kurt, thank you for being a new addition. I hope that you will do this more often, buddy.
Thanks for having me back. I always learn something, Al, so appreciate it.
I learn something every fucking day, man. How can you not? Marijane, how are you doing over there?
I'm good. I'm working on some road clips.
Cool.
Cool beans. All right. Lennie, always a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm just subtly doing a little promotion for next week.
Thank you.
Try not to violate the Cannabis Act, just subtly changing my profile.
Thank you for being such a good sport. I hope
that, Lennie?
Just subtly changing my profile.
Darcy's got some too. That looks awesome.
What's right behind your head there? We can't see what that word is. Now we can't see it at all.
Fucking backwards, but whatever.
Oh, secret cookies. Is it a really good secret?
You guys.
Not anymore.
Yeah, there'll be a letter in your envelope tomorrow.
Oh, Lennie.
Yep.
There's the jar.
Can't
Back
see
it
it.
up.
Back it up.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Put
It's
it in
like
front of you.
fucking...
Put it in front of you. It needs light on it.
Oh, I'm not trying to shit on our fucking boys.
No. And there's the $16 joint.
A $16 joint. Wow.
Ouch.
Well, I know there's a $36.99 product at NSLC next week. That's probably not so bad.
We'll find out.
I think it's okay.
I think that we should call it quits
My
now.
confidence is up and fairly strong.
Al,
Yes.
I really wish the planes were moving fast and I could ship you some overnight.
What do you got now, buddy?
No, some of our stuff so you could try it on the radio show next week.
Oh, you guys are getting ready, are you?
No,
Lennie,
I guess I'm not subtle. I guess I've been too subtle, Al.
Yeah.
Our products in Nova Scotia on Tuesday.
Awesome, buddy. So you guys, is the website going live and everything?
The website, it's more of an issue with our billing and delivery issues.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah.
But actual adult use in Nova Scotia starts Tuesday.
What's with this adult use crap? When did that kick in? I must have been
What's
sleeping.
Tonight.
You know what? I heard it the other day, too. I don't know who else fucking said it, too.
Jack, have they been punching that into your ticket, too? Adult use to change the terminology?
No, that hasn't been a factor.
Wow.
I've only heard it like twice in like the last 2 days from different. Maybe it's an American term.
I heard somebody on the
I think it might be
radio.
more American because Canada we're pretty used to wreck on wreck.
They were on the radio this morning or yesterday morning when I was going out to Oshawa, and they were correcting themselves and saying, no, we are calling it adult use now. So there must have been an article or somebody said, maybe Trump said something. I don't know. Somebody said something.
It was Canada, actually, Marcel. It was it was regarding NSLC and OCS, the term I heard.
Okay.
So someone must have had a meeting somewhere and left us out.
A lot of the laws and the regulatory oversight here in the states at the state level and municipal level I would say the default, kind of the standard, is adult use, although it is totally correct that the previous reference was recreational, quote unquote.
Yeah. To be honest, I kind of like adult use better now that you say it.
It takes a while to get used to it, but yeah, it just kind of becomes default after a while.
Because to me, it's still... It may not be prescribed. Like, I always like the term prescribed and unprescribed was what I was always a fan of, to be honest. Meaning you were getting medical direction versus non-medical direction.
Right.
But I can live with adult use.
My medicine's so good, people use it for recreational.
I don't like adult use. I find adult use, the comparison is child use or children use. Like, is that then?
Well, I think because that term doesn't exist, I think is the point.
It does now.
Not yet.
I'm going back to I like prescribed and unprescribed.
Prescribed and non-prescribed.
And I think the whole adult use goes back to your guest Daylin from Pennsylvania, where he spoke several times about regulations and proposed regulations in his state of Pennsylvania mirroring those of alcohol.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of where the 21 standard comes from now that I stop to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had some interesting things to say. And on that note, I want to thank Senator Daylin Leach for being here. It was certainly an interesting conversation, and I'm sure that
it was a
come
pleasure.
back. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
He was very enlightening the first time he was on the show. Jack, always a pleasure. Kurt, same to you, buddy.
Thanks again, man.
Guys, thank you for being here. The neighbor, Drew, thanks for joining us, Drew. Everybody on Facebook.
You got him to talk.
He actually spoke.
He actually spoke. Yep.
He's not a mute.
This is the 420 radio show. We're live here Friday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for listening. And good night.
Have a great weekend, guys.
Come back and see us.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.